@Genicon1. Please contact your state legislators and state and local election boards to demand paper ballots and risk limiting audits for the 2018 midterm elections. If we lose our democracy, we are unlikely to get it back. Thank you. Paper ballots no protect our votes. @KurtIconwald. I am sorry. I can't take this anymore. Children die, we all bleed, I rage, nothing happens, more children die. I can't marshal my rage anymore. Raging pointlessly against the wind, in a land where politicians don't care if children die, this will never end. @Summers. Dear kids, I am a baby boomer. We are getting old. But at least we had sex, drugs and rock and roll. Seems like millennials have moral panics, workshops, and grievance circles. Time to rebel. XXMOM.
The families, I'm tired. Another AR-15. I'm tired. America, you're killing your kids. What are we going to do about this? What's wrong with us?
What do you think we should do about it?
First, stop accepting blood money. What's the difference between why are we accepting money from the NRA? Politicians, grow a spine. Think of your kids. Think of the pain. Those 15, 17 people are my family. They're your family. And I'm not preaching. This is real. When are we going to wake up?
Thomas 1774 Payne. Lions catch and kill suspected poacher in wildlife area. Managers of a wildlife area in South Africa say a pride of lions killed a suspected poacher. The Umbabot Private Nature Reserve, says the man. Omar Wade. We are sick of burying our children. We need leaders who have no loyalty to lobbyists. We demand change. If elected, I promise to never forget who I serve. Maggie Neat, John Lemmeyer President. Administration aides tell me that advisors have recommended he say something, but he has opted not to. New evidence confirms what gun rights advocates have said for a long time about crime.
And the city police. However, the municipality or the state or the city or the local politicians have to do to organize this. After Florida, after this tragedy, after the constant stream of people who snap, there are no amount of laws. This goes beyond. Well, if we have this law and we prevent the guns from getting into the hands of bad people, there are hundreds of thousands of illegal weapons in this country. 8 out of 10, and so This is new evidence confirms what gun rights advocates have said for a long time about crime. This is in the Washington Post. Lawful gun owners commit less than a fifth of all gun crimes. In a study led by Graduate School of Public Health researchers partner with the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police to trace the origins of all 893 firearms that police recovered from crime scenes in the year 2008. 79% of the perpetrators were carrying a firearm owned by someone else. 18% of the perpetrators perpetrator was a legal owner of gun. They found that in approximately 8 out of 10 cases, the perpetrator was not a lawful gun owner, but rather in illegal possession of a weapon that belonged to someone else. All guns start out as legal guns, but a huge number of them move into illegal hands. More than 30% of the guns that ended up at crime scenes had been stolen, according to Fabio's research. But more than 40% of those guns stolen weren't reported by the owners as stolen until after police contacted them when the gun was used in a crime. Okay, so the overwhelming majority of gun crimes aren't committed by lawful gun owners. This is just okay. So this is just obvious. It's basic knowledge. If you have any knowledge of life, any basic grasp of logic, there are hundreds of millions of guns in the country. There are more guns than people, and a great percentage of them are illegal or obtained illegally. It is time to, number one, find out why people snap, why people commit these evil acts. That is the most important issue, and that's going to take years and years and years and years, because it's not even just only about mental health. It's about emotional health. It's about, if you want to even bring into this equation, spiritual health. It's about a nation that we have a country of, we've lost grasp on, I don't know, I can't even put my finger on it, but we have become callous as a nation when it comes to slaughter, war. The same people who will hug a tree are also the same people who don't mind that President Obama destroyed Libya. Think about that for a second. The NATO bombing helped destroy Libya that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, and they spent $500 million, Obama did, on arming Syrian rebels. I mean, we can go on forever. Neoconservatives are in the Democratic Party. Just think about that. There is no anti-war movement. We send half to two-thirds of all the Americans killed and wounded in Iraq and Afghanistan were the victims of IED blasts. Nobody knows these things. We have hundreds of thousands of traumatic brain injuries from Iraq and Afghanistan, from these counterinsurgency wars, and Obama started our involvement in Yemen, and Trump has, stepped that up. That's bad. I don't agree with that. But our involvement started by a Democrat who won the Nobel Peace Prize. The hypocrisy on the left is one of the big reasons that the right, the conservatives generally have their vantage point and they stick by it, and there's even an anti-war stance there that's growing a lot stronger than any anti-war stance on the left, because the left has Democrats have a complex. That's why Hillary, she had a complex, so she had to seem tough. She had to be friends with Kissinger. She had to do all these things and destroy Libya. She was the deciding vote between Biden and Obama. Did not want to destroy Libya, but see, I'm all over the place because it's very, 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 very difficult. Number one, you need armed, not just guards, police officers. Truly, even police officers aren't trained to the point where they have to be, to ensure that, maybe special training for police officers who are at these schools. It's every school in the country now. Every single school in the country is a danger zone. Every school in the country is a danger zone. And let's not talk about you talk about gang violence. This is a huge, huge issue. And gang violence within cities, you have young people with access to illegally obtained weapons. A lot of young people who have access to weapons. There's very likely guns in schools right now, but just gang members that have them. Now, this is not about illegal immigrants or anything, or any ethnicity. We're talking of any ethnicity: white, black, Latino, Asian. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If you have a crew of kids, young men or young boys, and they obtain an illegal weapon, and they happen to be part of a bigger network of gangs, it doesn't matter the ethnicity, it doesn't matter the background, it doesn't matter the race. They're going to have weapons, illegally obtained weapons, especially if you're talking about a big city, and if you're talking about a very poor socioeconomic area where people are living in poverty, there's no jobs, and there's gangs and there's crime. But this is not, when people say, like, gun violence leads to, that's like saying cancer leads to. Well, if you smoke all the time, or if you inhale, carcinogens, asbestos, whatever, you're going to get, God forbid, cancer. Well, when people say, gun violence leads to, gun violence leads to death. Yeah, when bullets are flying at you, you're very likely or very possibly could die, as we saw today in this horrific tragedy. But what causes the gun violence? And what is the gun violence about? Is it about horrible poverty, crime, gangs, just criminals who get their hands on weapons, or people who snap, people who commit crimes deliberately, people who snap and then shoot up a place? Why do they snap? That needs to be addressed. So I'll put the Washington Post article below. But the issue here is why do people snap? Why are these people? Why is the? It is not a normal. A person who wants to shoot up a school is not going to say, well, golly gee, there's this law preventing me from obtaining a weapon. What am I to do now? They're going to, even if you banned all guns, they would buy illegal guns. There would be a black market for guns. Even if you went ahead and okay, think of it this way. If you're a progressive, quote unquote, and you think I'm crazy, and you say, oh my goodness, HA, oh my goodness, you've actually lost it. Oh, I thought you were bad with defending Trump, but now you've gone off the rails. If you're buying marijuana or any drug from the dealer in your state, and I'm all for legalizing marijuana. I want pot legal, cannabis legal, marijuana legal throughout the nation. I don't consider it a drug like cocaine or anything like that. So forget about that. But if you're in a state, and let's say you're buying drugs, or you have a marijuana dealer, or whatever, that person very likely has access to illegal weapons. Very likely. Not saying certain, very likely. If you're engaged in if you know anyone who's engaged in any type of criminal activity, that person very likely has access to guns, and those guns almost certainly are not legally obtained. You cannot buy a gun if you've been in prison. So, give me your thoughts below. Number one, I guess I'll just end it like this. Number one, there needs to be armed police officers, or at least a police officer, at every school in the nation. You can't have this, insane person going into a school not being opposed by anyone with a gun. Sorry, you can go ahead and have the liberal. This is a profanity alert, I guess. You can have the progressive or liberal circle jerk. Guns are really bad. Guns are bad. What about Clinton and weapons deals? No, what? No, that's different. But at home, you can't just have this kind of unopposed slaughter. These are children and young people, and they deserve to live their life without going to school and getting shot up. And there has to be some line of defense. No one's good. The insane shooter who just goes in unopposed in the school or keeps shooting and then, has all the time in the world until the police come to just do what he needs to do or wants to do, God forbid, or whatever, like, today in Florida. There has to be some person there, at least with the possibility of stopping the insane active shooter with a gun. And then of course, you get the petulant, what happens if that person gets killed? And what happens if what happens if this? What happens if that? Well, yeah, this would be the obvious solution, short-term solution at least, or long-term, is to have somebody there, a police officer preferably in my view, that's specially trained to ensure that they don't treat children or anyone at the school the same way they treat a person on the street. Okay, because a great many officers exhibit way too much violence, but so they have to be some kind of trained in some manner that's different. But number one, you need armed police officers at school. Number two, you need to find out why these things are taking place in a human being's mind. What is it that snaps? There was a guy, I believe, in Sweden who killed 60 people in a youth retreat. I think it was Sweden. There are people in China who just go into kindergartens with knives. They can't get guns, but they just knives and stabbing children. I mean, where does that take place? There's an epidemic. It didn't happen in the 50s. Didn't happen in the 60s. Didn't happen in the 70s. People had access to guns. They in many ways, they had greater access than they do now. Why is it suddenly late 80s and then 90s, late 90s and then 2000? It's now rampant. Why? It's not just about the guns. And you can enact any law you'd like, and a crazy person will circumvent that law and try to wreak havoc. So why are these people trying to wreak havoc? Why? So officers in schools finding out what is going on with this insanity, this evil that engulfs individuals, why it takes place, what are the contributing factors in society as well. And I guess those are the two main issues that I can come up with. But all the patting themselves on the back and the quote unquote, excuse my expression, profanity alert, the kind of liberal progressive circle jerk. And the problem with that is conservatives, whether you agree with them or not, and they don't always agree with a lot of the things on the right, but they do believe in their value system. Democrats and progressives don't. They don't. And they'll get bullied and they'll get stomped on. There's no fight. There's no fight in them. You cheat Bernie Sanders. Well, I guess if you're gonna vote for Clinton, we gotta stop Trump. No, because on the other side of the gun rights people, if there was a Republican that took away their guns, they would never in a million years vote for that person. They wouldn't care if the Democrat won. Never in a million years they would draw a line in the sand. So they believe, but they stand by their value system forever. Liberals and progressives don't. We need to ban fracking. Well, Clinton? Oh yeah, she doesn't care and she takes money from oil and gas. Well, I guess that's just the way the game is played. So you have one side that actually stands by their value system and conservatives, and then on the left you have, oh my God, you're bad, you said something horrible on Twitter, but all the racism on the Democratic aisle we won't talk about, racial discrimination lawsuits for Young Turks, we won't talk about that. So it's all, I know I'm getting into like a whole bunch of other issues, but give me your thoughts below. People are talking about it, obviously, and what can I tell you? I mean, there's no quick fix to this, but there's obviously logical solutions that aren't about more legislation. The whole point of criminals commit crimes. They break laws. They don't follow laws. This is a profanity alert. How fucking hard is that? for quote-unquote progressives or liberals or whatever to understand. Criminals commit crimes, meaning they break laws. And when there's hundreds of millions of guns, and when the Washington Post article I just read said most crimes are committed with illegal weapons, and there's more than just that, then you do the math. Doesn't matter what you do to ban guns or magazine, high-capacity magazine or anything like that. They will find, insane people and criminals will find a way to circumvent it. So you want to make sure that if, God forbid, some insane person like today goes into a school, that they will be prevented, or at least there's a chance for them to be prevented. I know the petulant comebacks will be, well, you don't even know because the person could well then, the officer could, God forbid, be killed by the crazy person. And yeah, but at least give the chance of survival. The chance of survival. And right now, these places with our children, an insane person or a criminal can go in unopposed. There needs to be some line of defense, because we know that all of these heinous crimes are being committed by either insane people. We don't, and that's the next thing. We don't know why these people snap, and we need to find out why they snap. This is a phenomenon, and we need to find out why it's taking place, or an epidemic. You can't fix a problem unless you know why it's taking place. Give me your thoughts. Thank you so much for listening.
Let's keep it moving, yep.
At Gal Deplorable. German Film Festival Berlin M% Beyond kicks off in San Francisco. Film DWO 92.2018.
Have been focused on is on Heidi Todd and recovering her faith.
Zero Gravity Party plane takes off in Frankfurt, Germany. News DWO 72.2018.
That a Chief Oliver actually stopped the suspect and took the young girl Heidi from the suspect from the car, and luckily got her out of the car safely, and the suspect then sped away. So he's still at large. She's at the medical university. She's receiving care, fine care there, but she really got beat up.
Lactoless delivered products despite salmonella recall. French retailers say France 24.
And support in any way. So I ask for your prayers to continue for Heidi's mom.
There is a suspect.
Allies pledged $30 billion to rebuild Iraq, far short of $88 billion goal. France 24.
There should be a bolo, be on the lookout, put out by
Accused of harboring Paris attackers, the Ash landlord cleared of charges. France 24.
The name is Thomas Lawton Evans, white male, date of birth 11/7/80. We anticipate warrants from the state charges, local charges for kidnapping. We also anticipate the FBI to secure their complaints, their warrants soon as well.
Jeff Weiner LinkedIn found a way to grow talent solutions.
The additional charges filed, but those are the things that we need to get in place.
Scientists know how you will respond to nuclear war, and they have a plan wired.
And again, I think very shortly the media should have the rest of the identifying information, photographs and things like that, so that everyone can be on the lookout for the suspect.
Chinese New Year means a spending spree across East Asia. The New York Times fires tech writer Quinn Morton, and it has complicated wired. Barack and Michelle Obama portraits unveiled in Washington. News DW World 2.2018. The Syrian doctor building an underground hospital for women in Syria deeply. Campaigners to challenge the improper ruling on Fox before
South China Sea being China's lake. The deployment of the J-20 stealth fighter for combat service and Su-35 jets for drills over the South China Sea shows the Air Force has significantly boosted its capacity to handle security threats from the sky. According to the People's Liberation Army, J-20 stealth fighter was combat-ready after it entered military service in September. Supported by China's radars and command centers equipped with supercomputers on China's artificial islands, J-20 and Su-35 will dominate the airspace there. US F-35 has too short a range to fight there, as US aircraft carriers are unable to enter the range of China's hundreds of DF-21D and DF-26 anti-ship ballistic missiles, while its F-22 need repeated risky aerial rifles to reach there. Now, the South China Sea is indeed China's lake.
documented.
Sure. Yeah, sure it is.
Yeah, exactly. See, this is your answer to everything. Whenever somebody debunks what you're saying,
debunks. No one believes what you're saying. The Jews kicked Arabs off their land. This is not in dispute.
Sure it is. It's in 100% dispute what you're saying because it's not true.
All right, let me get this from you then. In principle, the Jews should not have kicked Arabs off their lands?
They didn't do it, so I'm not talking
No. I'm asking you, in principle, Jews should not kick Arabs off their land, yes or no?
I don't know. I'm not advocating for this.
Okay, all right, okay, no, but this because you don't want to answer the question when it comes to your thing.
You just
and you're accusing
me and didn't let me finish. Finish. If it came to my decision, if someone crowned me Emperor Scott and said, what is your solution in Israel? I would easily say, kick all the Arabs off, just like you did all the Jews. But I would also realize that I would have to do so violently and fight a war to do it. If you're encouraging that you think your people should pick up arms and do that, I encourage you to try, because you will lose, and you will lose badly. And that's what I would be happy with. So, if you're saying that I'm being a hypocrite and a double...
Trump fires first salvo on red prices. Alex Jones info hours there is a one for your mind.
The same as I would expect an Arab to fight for his citizenship.
So basically, you're a Jewish supremacist here. You're saying, I mean, now, can I ask you a question?
Talk about being a Jewish supremacist. You're making that case, not me. You're the one saying I control the media, I control Hollywood, I control the banks, my country's lobby controls the government, I control immigration policy, and then you're saying, and you know what? You're acting like a Jewish supremacist. Do you realize how ridiculous that sounds?
No, it doesn't sound ridiculous at all.
Mike, would you, like, if you wanted to kick all the Jews out, would you be willing to do it violently?
Sure, yeah, in theory, but the point is, though, that, like, this very conversation is an attempt to distract from essentially what we are saying. Now, you can always do this. You can always say, hey, you guys, what you ultimately want. I mean, here, Halsey was trying to get into a position where he had some kind of moral authority because he was going to get me to say, oh, you want to kick out the Jews. I think Jews should go to Israel. Israel is their state. Now, he doesn't want to talk about Jews kicking Arabs off their land because it kind of messes with his ability to take a moral high ground.
Students being offensive Valentine say Alex Jones info hours there is a one for your mind.
Jews don't live here, where Jews don't have power over me.
And he just made up what I said. I explicitly said that given the opportunity, I would throw Arabs out. I have also said that they have not thrown Arabs out. If they were so powerful, they could throw all the Palestinians right over the border and never have.
Really an attempt to intimidate and silence the defendants, and it goes beyond us. You might say, all right, well, tough luck, you went up against the wrong people, but it goes beyond us.
Worldwide threats briefing 5 takeaways from Russia to China wired.
There's a subpoena issued to Twitter.
Kuwait summit promises $30 billion in aid reported recent in front of Lord High 2.2018.
See a story like this and you represent the people you do and you have the job you have.
Yeah, I mean, my heart drops to my stomach because I know what this community is going through.
Amazon surpasses Microsoft in market value for the first time.
Something like this hits you when you lose this many kids in such a short period of time. The ripples never end. People
the impact of Chechen and North Caucasian militants in Syria deeply.
Never recover. Many families have moved away. The trauma of the kids who survived, the sisters, the friends, those who stepped over the dead bodies as they left that school, are with you forever. And so what you have to realize is that after the TV cameras are gone from Parkland, after people have moved on to the next story, their grief is just beginning. And that's maybe for those of us who have lived through this, what we think about on days like this.
I have covered probably, I don't know, probably 20 of these at this point. I was in Las Vegas.
Questions and answers about security clearances.
I'm sure you've sat there and you've watched a number of these. There's a kind of learned helplessness. You feel like you're sitting in a car in neutral and gunning the engine as you watch this transpire. Do you feel that way?
I don't feel helpless. I don't feel helpless because,
everyone hates Silicon Valley,
except
its imitators
the
wired.
responsibility for this lies in our hands. It is Congress that has applied a kind of quiet, unintentional endorsement to these murders. These are copycat killings. It used to be that there was a greater diversity of weapon use. Not anymore. It's an AR-15 every single time, and there's a deadliness to that weapon that is absolutely unique. Come and talk to those of us who have seen the crime scene reports from Sandy Hook. And by doing nothing about it, by refusing to have a debate about criminalizing the purchase of these weapons, we're sending this just very strange, perverse signal to these unhinged young men who are contemplating these crimes of violence, that if it comes with no condemnation from the highest levels of government, then maybe they're green-lighted. And I know that's not what my colleagues mean to do, but people listen to what we say and what we do. And when we do nothing, it has impact.
I want you to elaborate on that point. That is a very different way of thinking about this than I've heard before. And it's very different than talking about the restrictions on the sort of statutory side. You're essentially saying that there's a kind of like implicit, symbolic, tacit, I don't know, approval, winking and nudging, toleration of this ritualized mass slaughter because you and your colleagues don't do anything on the law side?
I think we have to ask ourselves why this is happening in the United States and nowhere else. Now, we don't have the details about this young man, but this profile
NSA shooting, 3 arrested, 3 injured after cell crashes main gate.
Deeply troubled young men in every first world nation.
Facebook has creepy history of you, Alex Jones info hours there, so we're on for your mind.
Destruction to try to deal with their inner turmoil. Now, some of that is because they have access to weapons here that you don't have access to other places. But some of it is because of a celebratory
Passengers
culture
describe fear during California plane evacuation.
That, yes, is endorsed by the United States Congress when we
chief
don't
says
take
he flies
seriously
first
our
class due to
obligation to make
security
sure
concerns.
that
New York
kids like
Daily
this
News
don't have weapons like this. So no, I don't think that that inaction is an explicit endorsement. But I think it is part of the story as to why these young men make the decision to do this, a decision that
there have already been 18 school shootings in the U.S. this year. Every town up
We
news.
have later in the show Mark Fulman, who's a fantastic journalist, and Brother Jones, who's covered mass shootings, and particularly the copycat nature, which you just mentioned. And I struggle with this, and I'm saying this right now live on air as we cover this and as we roll this footage about whether covering it makes it worse. Whether essentially we've created a doom loop of imitation here. Should we ignore these?
No, you shouldn't ignore them, because ultimately this will move this country to action. And I've seen the anti-gun violence movement get stronger and stronger every year. And I think we have to look at what happened today that you didn't cover. There were 90 other people who died from gunshot wounds today. None of that gets covered. And it still happens week after week, day after day. So there's no evidence that not covering shootings prevents them, because nobody at the national level covers what happens in Chicago every night, and it continues to happen in large part because they have access to these weapons that other countries don't have access to.
When I look at Congress at this moment in our history and the president, and I look at statistics and I look at America, between opioids and
New York
guns,
prosecutor sues Harvey Weinstein's studio ahead of reported sale news DW 12.2018.
It's a sort of shocking thing to get your head around when you just look at those two. And there seems like there's something fundamentally broken in the levers of representation with the United States government, that those two specters grind on, creating the trauma and death and grief that they do with essentially no response from the government.
Yeah, and this week we're going to be talking about
Jamaican bobsled coach Sandra Girias quits Winter Olympics team
to a wall to protect ourselves from a fictional enemy. We are screwed up in our priorities here about how to best protect the American citizenry. On this issue of gun violence, it is merely a question of political power. We get stronger year after year. We saw the exit polls in Virginia, which tells you that more and more Americans have moved the issue of gun violence up their list when they go to the polls. Hopefully they're doing the same thing for the opioid epidemic. Our priorities are drastically screwed up, and only the American public, voters, can change that.
Why? Why are those priorities screwed up? And what are the conversations like when you talk about your colleagues about that?
Well, I think we are ignoring these two epidemics for different sets of reasons. I think on the gun violence.
Is it delicious? If a photographer captures the perfect moment and no one ever sees it, was it perfect? If a small business opens and no one ever buys anything, is it a business? It's not enough to just make something. Make your business stand out with a beautiful website. Make it Squarespace. Start your free trial today and use offer code SoundCloud to save 10%.
Processing search parameters. Take a good look at what I just found. Powerball hash winner who demands anonymity to get money. Take a good look at what I just found. Nashua, an age, at a New Hampshire woman who won a $559.7 million Powerball jackpot should be able to collect the winnings soon while a judge decides whether to let her remain anonymous. A judge in Nashua heard arguments Tuesday from lawyers for the woman who say her privacy interests outweigh what the state says is the public's right to know who won the money in the nation's 8th largest lottery jackpot. The woman, identified as Jane Doe, signed the ticket following the Jane 6th drawing, but later learned from a lawyer that she could have shielded her identity by writing the name of a trust. They said she was very upset after learning she was giving up her anonymity. By signing the ticket, something the Lottery Commission acknowledged isn't spelled out on the ticket but is detailed on its website. Outside the court, both sides seem to agree the money could be transferred in the coming days into a trust. The woman has set up a Good Karma Family Trust of 2018. Her lawyers claim the delay in payment was costing her about $14,000 a day or about $500,000 a month in interest, and have filed a separate motion with the court to release the money. Sean White captures hash gold with monster third run-up news. I can't believe I found this. Pyeongchang, South Korea, when the pressure was on, Shaun White landed there and that had haunted him for months, threw his hands into the air and tossed his helmet into the crowd. He didn't wait to see his score to let the emotion of the day overtake him. That's the image that will remain burned into the mind of anyone who witnessed White's historic performance Wednesday afternoon. The three-time Olympic gold medalist, head in hands, tears streaking his cheeks, humbled and human at the bottom of the half-pipe. I've never seen Shaun cry like that, said his dad, Roger, tears in his eyes. Seeing him cry made me cry. My tears are joy. It's all over. All that pressure he's had since Sochi, it built a fire under him. For White, the tears were about perseverance. Until he finished fourth at the Sochi Olympics in 2014, he'd never had to face the possibility that he might not be able to write his own ending. He'd had losses, but never in that mammoth moment, never when the stage was set for him to drop in last, land the run and ride away the hero. It's awful to admit, but I was slightly defeated before I got to Sochi, White said. I wasn't motivated. I didn't have it in me. Until he crashed in New Zealand in October attempting to learn the cab double cork 1440, or yellow flip, and suffered gruesome injuries that required 62 stitches in his face and 5 days in intensive care. He'd never realized how much he wanted a third Olympic gold. Partial solar eclipse. What to know bar time? When I realized what this was. The second solar eclipse in 6 months is coming on Thursday. The partial solar eclipse will be visible in Antarctica and a sliver of southern South America, experts say. Sky gazers in Uruguay, Argentina, southern Chile, far western Paraguay, far southern Brazil and Antarctica can see the celestial event on Thursday, February 15th for up to about 2 hours, according to Ernie Wright, a programmer in the Scientific Visualization Studio at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. While a partial solar eclipse is not nearly as remarkable as the total solar eclipse, keen spectators wearing the proper protective eyewear will be able to notice a change in the sun's shape. It comes on the heels of a total lunar eclipse on January 31st. Here is what to know about the partial solar eclipse. A partial solar eclipse happens when the moon only blocks a portion of the sun. It is different from a total solar eclipse, which occurs when the moon completely blocks the sun, momentarily engulfing some areas on Earth in sudden darkness. The U.S. experienced a total solar eclipse on August 21st, 2017, which made history for being the first total solar eclipse seen only in the United States since the nation's birth in 1776. Jacob Zuma, South African president, resigns after wrong party turns against him. I hate going into the deep dark parts of the internet. Jacob Zuma announces he is resigning in a live televised address after facing a no-confidence motion amid corruption claims. Well, Thursday 15th February 2018. By David Mercer, news reporter. Embattled South African President Jacob Zuma has said he is resigning with immediate effect. In a press conference, Mr. Zuma said he did not fear exiting political office after facing a no-confidence motion from his party, the African National Congress (ANC). FDA approves first blood test that can help diagnose a concussion. This one is over the top. The Food and Drug Administration on Wednesday approved the first ever blood test to detect the telltale signs of serious brain injury, bringing to fruition a long quest to make the diagnosis of concussions simpler and more precise. After deliberations that took less than 6 months, the FDA approved the marketing of a Banyan brain trauma indicator to aid the evaluation of concussions in adults. The speedy approval of such a blood test, after it was assigned the FDA designation of a breakthrough product, is expected to drive down the number of CT scans performed on patients who seek emergency room care for a possible concussion, reducing both costs and patients' exposure to radiation. The new test identifies 2 brain-specific proteins that appear in the blood within 12 hours after a brain injury. Levels of these 2 proteins, ubiquitin carboxyterminal hydrolase L1 and glial fibrillary acidic protein released from the brain into the blood, can help predict which patients may have brain lesions visible by CT scan and which won't. Test results currently can be available within 3 to 4 hours. But Henry L. Nordhoff, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of San Diego-based Banyan Biomarkers, told the Times on Wednesday that his company is working with the Defense Department to shorten that turnaround time to under an hour. As the company brings on 2 companies to produce a smaller, faster blood testing instrument, Nordhoff predicted that within 2 years, the assay will be available for rapid use in ambulances, emergency departments and in athletic training rooms. Stunning new details in first medical hash report on us personnel in Cuba Arctic Radio. I found this in the dark corners of the internet. It was very scary. Dakota City, Nebraska, a hearing is scheduled for Friday on a request by Nebraska prosecutors to force a homicide suspect to take antipsychotic medication. Andres Serber. Parkland, Florida. Authorities are scouring social media for clues to why Nicholas Cruz allegedly opened fire outside Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, on Havana, U.S. Personnel at the embassy in Havana who've experienced a rash of symptoms from mysterious health attacks appear to have suffered widespread brain network D. The National Cattlemen's Beef Association, today applauded the introduction of bipartisan legislation in the U.S. Senate that would prevent farms, ranches, and other The NSA State High School Wrestling Tournament is set for Omaha, Thursday, Friday &M, Saturday. Classes B&MC begin things on Thursday morning at 9:30 a.m. Classes A&MD. At business. Billionaire Charles Munger says Bitcoin is a noxious poison he wants nothing to do with. At Fraser747. At Blobo. Follow alert, please follow my very good friend at BlobokDJ is my favorite person on Twitter. Absolutely awesome tweets, great memes, and she is very intelligent. Facts matter, women for Trump mother. At Brian Dasonusa, one thread I often get attacked by extremists who see any attempt to improve safety and gun laws as a gun ban. As a gun owner, I believe we should let efforts to keep guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them stolen and shoot in the now as a now gun control power plan. At Fraser747, at Israel lose the forever. Must watch, please just watch all these photos of the president. What is wrong with Obama? Great video at Israel lose the forever. At Bella623. Seen my prizes for the 2018 Valentine giveaway, 60 prizes, M% chances to win grand prize of $100 PayPal cash. Gift cards, books, tea, mystery prizes, jewelry, M% more. Enter on my site for your Afflecopter link chasms. At Jonathan Zunger, at BostonGlobeTH. Something obvious when you say it out loud. Domestic violence is one of the best predictors of violence towards others. It is a red flag of someone being a general danger. At Forward. You want to believe the insane, anti-Semitic message behind this anime cartoon. At Gary Clone 3, at Vivala First Held, at Loudob. Sessions is a trash dump. At Rich Brontipdifs. Democrats. At Windensor 2, at Vivala for replying, at Vivala for, at Nanoyobos 6. Yup, Sessions must go. Patriot Americans have seen enough of this bus. Get out of office, Sessions. You're a disgrace to justice.
Turn up the boombox. Turn up the boombox.
At Brat Pack, at the Film Critic Bot. Republican Greek gun violence gun censorist.
Turn up the boombox.
At Fraser747. Make America great again. At Yonhap News. Olympics, as Korean skeleton slider confident of strong next rounds. South Korean skeleton slider Yeon Sungbin was confident Thursday of another sound performance in his next runs after he took a leg with him. At Real Gala Wire, at Mzanati New York Times wonders can white kids dress as Black Panther at Mzanati. As Allen residents will no doubt tell you, the town has a lot more to offer than a very expensive and initially very flawed high school sports. At Marcus. We don't have a gun problem in America. We have a mental health problem. Gun control no will not solve the underlying issue, it will only cause the insane to erupt in other forms. Parkland. At Rumble Biggs, at Jules Handler W. He was a Democrat, you stupid twat, and there were many warning signs saying he might actually do something like this and they were ignored. Has nothing to do with guns. Top-us diplomat makes rare admission of terror group as powerful political presence, says Israeli-Palestinian peace plan draft fairly well advanced. At Fraser 747, at Real Donald Trump. Wednesday wisdom as at Real Donald Trump continues to mug the Democrats continue to pretend to care more about Dreamers ampersand certainly put before Americans. They continue to try ampersand obstruct anything President Trump does to mug not the best strategy Trump 2020 America first. At Airbus, at Flypa, Mabuhay Manila. It is a beautiful morning to welcome at Flypa for demonstration flight on the A350 1000. A350 Zuptour. At the Russophile. Listen ampersand learn Russian language, 15 stories with text and speech. Listen to and read stories in Russian language. At Valazitsa, at Usambaki, at Vikmazhang. Us embassy wisely cut out of a picture the poster depicting and glorifying Ukrainian Nazi Schutzmannschaft police of we, guilty of horrendous war crimes against civilians. At time, man charged with murder after accidentally texting a detective about crime. He had intended to text his wife.
Welcome back to Fox News at Night, where we are following all the latest developments in today's school shooting. So far, 17 dead, many others still injured and in the hospital, some in surgery. Joining me now in Washington here is Florida Republican Congressman Brian Mast. Great to have you with us tonight, sir. And I know that you represent just north of this area, but you lived there. You used to bike right past the school.
I know a lot of folks in that community. I know all the neighborhoods around there. I know students there. I've spoken before their JROTC before. I know Coach Feiss, who I heard was quite heroic in his actions there. A lot of the family. So this touches close to home. My heart's going out there.
And this is just one of many instances that Florida's had. I mean, you had the incident at the Fort Lauderdale airport, obviously Pulse, which was, tragic as well. Why do you think that, you're now having to comfort so many people and go through this over and over again? It just seems like there's no solution to this kind of violence.
There's no question there's not a good solution. And that's something I think we can all agree on. I think if you ask me personally, I look at this and I don't like to cast nets over society, but I've heard a lot of people talk about the desensitization to killing. And I firmly believe that that's a root cause. I look to my own life. I was desensitized to killing on the battlefield. And I know how not glorious
Ethiopia releases high-profile political prisoners Africa DW 14 2.2018.
To see somebody bleed out. It's not glorious to see somebody cry out for their family. That's not a glorious thing. But that's not what people get out of seeing a John Wick movie. That's not what people get out of playing Call of Duty, and I think there's far too much.
Turkish organized German ambassador entry to Kurdish politician as trial news DW 14 2.2018.
Have been desensitized in a tragic but much more healthy way.
Yeah, and there's a lot of discussion tonight. I've heard a lot of people talking about our culture and where we are with movies, with music, with these games that are so realistic for young people. And a lot of young people that are hurting. The school superintendent down there talking about mental health
New York
issues.
prosecutor sues Harvey Weinstein's studio ahead of reported stale news DW 12.2018.
What can be done to encourage people to get help with mental health, especially if they don't think they need it and they don't want it?
A lot of it is taking the stigma out of mental health and the desire for that. And that's something that, you know, those of us that have been on the battlefield, that have been in the military, we're well aware of the stigma that can be associated with post-traumatic stress. And it's a very real thing that you're worried about. What are people going to think of me if I seek out help, if I seek out counseling, if somebody sees me
German
walk
arrested
out
for
of that
pushing
door?
police on into streetcar news DW 13.2018.
We have to work together to take that stigma out of it and let people know, you know, I as a representative, as a member of Congress, I don't mind talking about my experiences, and I don't mind sharing about the times that I'm a little bit more hurt about something, or that things can affect me, or that things, you know, can bring a tear to my eye. And it's important that we share at all levels, from our law enforcement to our elected officials to anybody else that's affected by it. Let people know it's not something that you have to be ashamed about. It's something that's part of the human condition.
And what about so many of these students we're hearing from who they thought
Maven,
he
GMS
was
car sharing
joking,
company,
did hint
launches
or
in
make
Toronto
threats
Wired.
about these kinds of things. They saw his social media. They all seemed very well aware of what was going on, but it seemed like many of the adults in his life didn't.
You can't take this sort of thing lightly, especially
Blowing
in
down
today's
party
world.
pressure.
We
South
know
African
that there
President
are
Jacob Zuma
copycats.
resigns
We
France
know that
24.
This is something that's happened just across the state numerous times.
Allies pledged $30 billion to rebuild Iraq, far short of $88 billion goal, France 24.
The Sheriff Israel there, I know him well. You know, he said, if you see something, say something.
It is
That
not
has
just
to be
lizards in
the
Iran,
policy.
other creatures tag us, pretend a high above $9,000.
Respect as well, where people aren't going to joke about the taking of
Saudi Arabia to restrain oil exports in March. Confident cuts will stabilize market.
The English language, but I don't know a word that does justice to this kind of
Amazon
tragedy.
and Bank of America partner for lending program, but growth has
Kids
stalled.
not coming home. I'm a father. Touches very close.
Well, and you've served our country as well overseas and given much there, and now on
Champions
the Hill.
League Ronaldo fires Real Madrid to 3-1 comeback win over PSG, France 24.
All right, I'm joined now by former CIA analyst Buck Sexton and former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino, who also spent years with the NYPD, as did Buck. Thank you both for your time tonight. I want to play a little bit of what Sheriff Israel had to say today, and he said this repeatedly again and again through the multiple press conferences today. If you'll listen quickly to this.
Absolutely sick to my stomach to see
Trumpist infrastructure plan threatens to leave little cities behind. Wired.
Backpacks and pencils lose their lives. This nation, we need to see something and say something. If we see different behavior, aberrant behavior, we need to report it to local authorities.
And today we've heard multiple reactions from students and witnesses who said the minute they heard something like this was happening, they immediately thought of this suspect. They were afraid of him. His social media portrayed violent images. Buck, what can they do? The school has expelled
Would delivery
him.
hash drones be held
There
at
were
efficient?
limitations about him
Depends
coming
where you
onto
live,
campus.
Wired.
He's 18 now,
Whoa.
19 years
Gee
old.
whiz.
Absent a very direct threat, how involved can law enforcement get in stopping someone like this?
Unless he breaks the law, there's really not all that much that can be done. It's very difficult.
If the idea of swarms of delivery drones dropping packages all over our cities started out as a joke, for some reason the punchline hasn't landed yet. Amazon applied for a patent in 2015 for a command center, like a beehive, plopped into your city. Which isn't a worrying metaphor at all. Google has its own program in the works, which at least for the moment involves delivering burritos.
range as
Again,
loners,
if
as
this is a
people
joke,
who feel
it has got a
bullied,
very long
people who
fuse.
are angry, who
Forget
will
about the
express that
insane
anger in ways
logistics
that
of
make
such a
others
system for a
uncomfortable.
moment, or if you'd
So
even
there
be
are
keen on
some
drones
common
swarming your
traits
town.
among these shooters,
The big
and that was
question
the
is,
case
would this
down in
actually be a
Florida
better,
with
more
this
efficient way to
individual,
go about
but that's
than
not
traditional
enough to
delivery
get a
trucks?
profile
Without a
together
real
that is necessarily
system in place that has stuff to answer. But today in Nature Communications, a group of researchers have taken a shot at modeling the energy efficiency of delivery drones and compared it to classical fleets of delivery trucks. Which comes out on top? It depends, basically, on a slew of factors that you probably haven't begun to think about, but they are the same ones companies and regulators will have to chew on as automated delivery becomes more plausible. First off, different regions of the country employ different levels of renewable energy like solar, which means charging all those drones would release different amounts of carbon dioxide depending on where you live. So for this study, the researchers compared emissions impacts at both ends of the spectrum. In a very green state, California, and a very not green one, Missouri. What we found were mixed results, says lead author Josh Stolaroff, an environmental scientist at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. There is a possibility drones can reduce greenhouse gas emissions and reduce energy use, but you have to be careful how you deploy them. Robots don't see desert workers hashites yet are wired. Hold up, this is really interesting.
And there were some takeaways from this that maybe school administrators, it would set off some warning bells, and who knows, maybe even a simple intervention and a
robots haven't taken over most people's jobs yet, but as AI becomes more powerful and more human activities become automated, what rights and considerations will we allow our workers? The economic weather has been clearing. In the United States, unemployment stands at a little more than 4%. At long last, wages are growing faster than productivity. Investors expect the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates in order to fight the inflation that accompanies full employment. There are even labor shortages in key industries, such as manufacturing, construction, and trucking. According to the Fed, workers feel new confidence. In December, 2.2% quit their jobs, the highest rate since 2001. All over the industrialized world, there is good news. Many workers now expect to keep their jobs or find better ones. But the good news arrives at a moment of general anxiety about the future of work. Smart people threat that artificial intelligence and robots are rapidly eliminating jobs. According to an estimate published by BCG in the World Economic Forum last month, 1.4 million American jobs will be displaced by automation over the next 8 years. Another recent report by PwC forecasts that up to 40% of jobs in the United Kingdom could disappear by 2030. According to McKinsey, half of all jobs around the globe could be displaced over the next 20 years. These experts make quarrel about the number of jobs at risk, but the general consensus is a lot. Jason Punton at Jason_Punton is an ideas contributor for Wired. He is a senior partner at Flagship Pioneering, a firm in Boston that creates, builds, and funds companies that solve problems in health, food, and sustainability. From 2004 to 2017, he was the editor-in-chief and publisher of MIT Technology Review. Before that, he was the editor of Red Herring Magazine, a business magazine that was popular during the dot-com boom. The observers are also at odds about what these changes portend. What, actually, is happening? Technological revolutions always destroy jobs. But past revolutions created a net increase in new jobs. We are witnessing a slow-moving robopocalypse, in which modern automation is eliminating more jobs than it generates. Are we facing an epoch where there will be more people than occupations and wages will be permanently depressed? An idea John Maynard Keynes called technological unemployment in 1930. Champions League. Ronaldo fires Real Madrid to 3-1 comeback win over PSG France 24. The internet really creeps me out sometimes.
Out there, in fact, the vast majority of them, who don't ever actually turn to violence like this. So you're trying to sift out, with limited resources and time, that one case that brings terrible tragedy.
International News 24/7.
Reported their own daughter, who they felt they discovered that she was planning or plotting some kind of attack. That young lady, my understanding, has now been
Latest update to 018-0214.
Her own parents had to take that step, and so often that's where it's got to come from the home. Buck and Dan, thank you both very much. Great to see you.
Adrian Rabiot smashed PSG into the lead in the 33rd minute, but Cristiano Ronaldo leveled from the penalty spot on the stroke of halftime, scoring his 100th Champions League goal for Real to set up a pulsating second half.
When he was arrested, it's an extremely popular rifle and has been used in mass shootings in Aurora, Colorado.
Ronaldo put Real in front in the 83rd minute with a scrappy strike from close range, and Brazilian left-back Marcelo further stretched the lead in the 86th, giving PSG a tough task in the second leg at the Parc des Princes on March 6th.
Other than the United States of America. This epidemic of mass slaughter.
The tie pitted 12 times European champions Real against the Qatar-backed Parisians, who have never gone beyond the quarterfinals in the competition but boasted an attacking trio that cost over €460 million, 572 million, to assemble in transfer fees alone. The two squads' combined cost exceeded €1.2 billion. Teva shares jump 11% after Berkshire Hathaway's $358 million take. Wait, you need to hear this.
Go right to gun control. Chris Murphy from Connecticut. Is this a problem with the gun or the shooter? Let's look at the AR-15. What makes it so popular?
Teva Pharmaceutical shares jumped 11% after Berkshire Hathaway reported a $358 million take.
A security and counter-terror expert. Aaron, you know this weapon well. I fired it many times.
In a quarterly regulatory filing Wednesday, Warren Buffett's conglomerate reported holding 18.9 million of Teva. After spiking, Teva was still up more than 6% in after-hours trading. Berkshire also reported a 23.3% increase in its holdings of Apple shares to 165 million, and a 21% increase in its holdings of Bank of New York Mellon to 60.8 million shares. At the same time, Berkshire has cut its holdings of it by 94% to just more than 2 million shares. It also trimmed its Wells Fargo stake by 6 million shares to 458 million, and its stake in General Motors by 10 million shares to 50 million. The regulatory filing reflects Berkshire's stock holdings as of the end of December. Investment managers are required to report such holdings every quarter, but with a delay. This story blows my mind.
There is a mental health epidemic here which is being confused for a gun problem. I don't want that to sound political, but it's the truth.
The government's ongoing offensive on Idlib province has already displaced thousands of civilians, many of whom previously fled violence in other areas, writes Cole Bockenfeld of the International Rescue Committee. Skydio are one autonomous drone that can follow and hash record you. When I realized what this was,
the weapon, just to go back to your first point, the AR stands for Armalite. It's very important for people to understand. Doesn't stand for automatic.
A startup founded by former Google drone engineers Adam Bree and Dave Buckberg, Skydio just delivered a self-flying camera that makes aerial photography a hands-free task. The new Skydio R1 uses computer vision and other types of artificial intelligence to fly itself, follow and record a subject down below. No piloting or camera skills required. Bree told CNBC, this technology is like what's being used in autonomous vehicles, in many ways. But of course, we had to develop this to deal with the general 3D motion of flying, and the lack of structure that goes with road systems. Unlike G's market-dominating drones, the Skydio R1 is operated without any controllers. Instead, users launch the Skydio iOS or Android app, and tap the screen on their mobile device to tell the R1 who to follow. With 13 different cameras, GPS and other sensors on board, the R1 maps its environment as it flies and can dodge trees or any other obstacles. Visual data and computer software let the R1 track and predict the movement of its subject below. It runs for 16 minutes on a charge and can fly up to 25 miles an hour, the company says.
15 years, which makes kids and people want to associate with this weapon, but the fact is, it looks like a menacing M4. Not even close. That's
It's
number one.
It's a semi-auto. It's a semi-auto weapon, but the magazines, the clips can hold more bullets. Correct? That's what California tackled with limiting the clip size and so forth. So that's what the Chris Murphy will say. Not only is this not just the way the weapon looks, it's the fact that the clip holds as many bullets, and if he didn't have a clip that held that many bullets, he couldn't have done that much damage. He had a lot of clips in his possession, apparently. But this weapon, this weapon's a popular weapon all over the country.
It's all over the country because it's a really good self-defense weapon. I would have one in my home for home defense. Thousands of people have them in their home because it's...
At Radio Freedom. She still wants to be my Valentine.
Para bailar la bamba, se necesita una poca de gracia. Una poca de gracia, arriba, arriba, y arriba, arriba. Ay, arriba, arriba, pa' mi padre, por ti seré, por ti seré. Yo no soy marinero, yo no soy marinero, soy capitán, soy capitán, soy capitán. Ba, 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 ba. Ba, 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 ba. Now.
Wait, when's the drop again?
At Ed Grasson. Marco Rubio, we shouldn't jump to conclusions that gun control laws would be prevented Florida school shooting. Here is in conclusion. If you don't agree gun control laws, more kids will die. Stop taking money from NRM and start doing things that help your constituents. At Kokomo Agreed. Here is the video with the info. At Art Funky Town. CNN analyst bursts into tears on air over Florida shooting, pushes gun control clearly going for an Oscar or an Emmy with that performance. Yet, illegal aliens kill people all the time and CNN opposes any sensible illegal alien control. On Wednesday, CNN counterterrorism analyst Philip Mudd burst into tears and pushed gun control while speaking about the tragic school shooting. At Cernovich. Homeschooling is what we are going to do. At Yosage Tedner. Obama in that 2016 admitted that the DNC hacking and news manipulations were not particularly sophisticated. This was not some elaborate, complicated espionage scheme. Yet here we are 14 months later still going nuts about Russia meddling.
They hacked into some Democratic Party emails that contained pretty routine stuff. Some of it embarrassing or uncomfortable because I suspect that if any of us got our emails hacked into, there might be some things that we wouldn't want suddenly appearing on the front page of a newspaper or a telecast, even if there wasn't anything particularly illegal or controversial about it. And then it just took off.
At Mombot. Why is the Batman voice actress official account posting selfies in protest of a school shooting? At Retrievers Day. Happy Valentine's Day. At Stick666 official. Them should never give up for Lent anything. Christianity is not my idea of a fun time. At CNN, at Opinion49. Trump, who reportedly enjoys treating himself to an extra scoop of ice cream after dinner every night, proposes cutting billions in social support and health care, and delivering sad boxes of cereal and canned meat, writes Jill Filipovic for at Opinion. First of all, Blue Apron it is not, writes Jill Filipovic. The so-called American Harvest Box proposed for food stamp recipients offers canned and packaged foods instead of choice bonuses. Today I sold my house for 35 Bitcoin. Going to travel the world for 2 years and hopefully buying a house double the size for less BTC this. At Seth Abramson. As there is no money left following my tax cut for the wealthy, what we need to fund my infrastructure plan geared toward rich private developers is a regressive tax that hits middle class, working class and working poor Americans hard, said the president. President Trump suggested Wednesday that an increase in gas and diesel taxes would be needed to help pay for his infrastructure plan, St. Tom, California. At Thomas 1774 Payne. Kathy Griffin's public meltdown continues as she attacks Writers Guild at their own event. Kathy Griffin seems to be broken by President Donald Trump no more. Griffin is unsurprisingly in the news after presenting at the Writers Guild Awards on Sunday, attacking attendees while she was. At Seendog, at Daphne Linzer Breaking, at Carol, at Mikamanal, at Quilkern5. The left is right that this is a scandal, but it is a scandal that implicates the clearance process and those running it, not the White House.
Warren Buffett just bought $28 billion of this particular stock. Can you guess which one? Do you think you'll be surprised, or is every...
I think there's a time now of poison politics.
You started tweeting recently. You're new to Twitter. And there's a couple that caught my attention. There's one that you said, it was a kind of a foggy picture, and you said, despite all the SH*T, American values will shine through. There's another one of the clips where you said, wish the moon wasn't the only thing casting a shadow across the country.
Well,
what were you talking about?
You know, I'm talking about, look, I think there's a time now of poison politics. I mean, somebody's joke, you know, someone said, gosh, it's never been this bitter. You know, we did have a civil war, and a McCarthy era, and blah, 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 and a lot of things. You know, there's a cycle in business, and there's a cycle in public discourse and sentiment, and I just think I don't like the lack of communication. Here's my vision. Right now, everybody goes to, you know, people getting elected tomorrow, it's the extremes of both parties, and everybody is promising their constituencies. People are primarying on the basis, I promise, I'll never compromise. My predecessor compromised.
News and current affairs from Germany and around the world. DW.
And so everyone's going to go to Congress and get nothing done. Could you imagine?
Police raids in Milton Keynes rescue modern slavery victims. News DW 14.2018.
It's crazy, but that's what people are doing. Somebody's going to get the bread. There's going to be
That Tuesdays Frontiers fired 19 people for sexual abuse in 2017. News DW 14.2018.
More of what we want. I'm going to try to get 75% of what we want, but I'm going to willing to compromise to get something done. Someone say, oh wow, what an original thought. What a good idea. And maybe it'll be like popcorn popping. One will come up pop, 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 pop. And maybe the cycle towards a more reasoned debate and more civility will happen. And that's what I'm trying to, that's what I was talking about.
Warren Buffett just bought $28 billion.
Carnival parades draw millions across Germany. News DW 2.2018.
Do you think you'll be surprised, or is everyone simply buying the same companies and making the same choices? Are we all headed in the same direction? Let's find out. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we're going to find out exactly what Warren Buffett has just purchased. Let's begin with this. Every company has their 13F with the SEC. That's the public holdings, so you get to see what they're buying, what they're selling. All you have to do is go to a search engine and type in 13F, 13F, put a space, and then the name of the person or company that you're interested in. This information is directly from the SEC's website. It is official, and I believe it's done quarterly. So, these numbers are from the last day of 2017. What you will find out here is that it's a great resource, it is official, but It's very hard to read.
Germany Martin
So there are
Schulz
a couple
steps down as
websites out there,
SPD
I've
head
shown you
news
these
DW
before,
13.2018.
very good for this particular purpose. They organize everything, they make it nice and easy, they show you the top holdings, what's being sold, what's being bought, organize it nicely. One of
France
those
Emmanuel Macron
is
closes LEC Press Room News DW 14.2018.
Holdingschannel.com is a great resource because it's making it easy for us to see that information.
Maven GMS
You can
car
see
sharing
here,
company launches in Toronto Wired.
quite frankly, Apple at the top of the list.
Democratic Task Force outlines voting security plan with first primary just weeks away Wired.
And that is, imagine, just in one quarter, buying $28 billion of this particular stock. Now, Berkshire is obviously a massive company, but still, when they're buying $28 billion worth in a short period of time, do you think that they are somehow
Turkish coordinized German ambassador entry to Kurdish politician as style news DW 14.2018.
And that's what happens. All of the central banks are acting. Then all of the big corporations, the investment companies and everything else go in after it, chasing that. And then you have the mutual funds and the lower ends on the totem pole there. They do their thing following along, and then the average investor gets it at the very end. That's the way it works. So they have increased their position dramatically. I mean, when you think about it, yes, Apple's a massive company, but still, $28 billion added onto their stock is a very nice boost, to say the least. So once again, Apple gets a boost, if not from the Bank of Norway, if not for the Swiss National Bank, the central banks around the world, they're getting it.
Searching internet. Would you look at this? Allies pledge $30 billion to rebuild Iraq, far short of $88 billion goal, friends 24. Check this out. International News 24/7. Latest update 2018-0214. The biggest pledge at the gathering in Kuwait came from Turkey, which announced $5 billion in credit to Iraq, while Kuwait's ruling emir said his oil-rich nation will give $1 billion in loans and $1 billion in direct investments. Saudi Arabia pledged $1.5 billion while the Kuwait-based Arab Fund says Iraq will receive $1.5 billion in infrastructure aid in coming years. Qatar, which is embroiled in a diplomatic crisis with a quartet of Arab nations led by Riyadh, pledged $1 billion. The United Arab Emirates pledged $500 million, as did the Islamic Development Bank. Germany pledged €500 million, $617 million, and the European Union €400 million, $494 million. Check this out. After the first airstrike hit near the hospital, those inside knew they would soon be targeted, writes Fadi Al-Zairi, the Syria country director for Hand in Hand. The next 41 minutes were one's affair. I can't believe it. Despite the de-escalation deal, a ban on humanitarian aid in eastern Ghouta, where 94% of besieged civilians in Syria reside, has created a man-made disaster, writes Syria expert Aaron. Hash remains found of girl who disappeared at French wedding France 24. This one is over the top. International News 24/7. Latest update to 018-0214. Investigators at last found Melissa Araújo's skull and some other remains Wednesday in a snow-covered ravine 6 months after she went missing, according to Grenoble prosecutor Jean-Yves Coquillat. Police were led to the remote site by chief suspect Nordal Lalande, who was arrested and charged after her disappearance but repeatedly had denied wrongdoing. He was a guest at the same wedding in Pont de Beauvoisin, near the French mountain city of Chambéry. Lalande decided to come clean Wednesday after investigators found traces of the girl's blood in the trunk of Lalande car, the prosecutor told reporters. At Real Savidra, at Stefankin thinks MS-13 is a gun. At Micro Mystery. At Proud Sister, at Mark Rubio Mark. We shouldn't jump to conclusions. At Mark Rubio Marco Rubio has taken $3.3 million from NER. I am jumping to conclusions. He, along with many others in the GOP, would rather line their pockets with NER donations and protect the American people from gun violence. Vateth Maut. At Tariq Nasheed. It's been confirmed that the Florida school shooter was white identity extremist Nicholas Cruz. At RTCom. A Mexican blogger has come up with a beautiful way to temporarily deal with nasty potholes on the streets of Mexico City.
military, retired police, locked doors, security first and foremost. Geraldo's right. This is a national emergency at this point. Let's save the kids, secure these schools. We can do it if we decide to do it.
Well, sure, Sean. I mean, look, we're all grief-stricken. We're all shocked by what happened today. It happened after Columbine, happened after Sandy Hook, happened after Pulse nightclub. But the worst thing you can do, I think, at a time like this in the early stages, emotion takes over, but you can't let emotion drive public policy. You end up with bad policy. One of the things that I suggested after Sandy Hook was that we should have this discussion at the state level, not nationally, about armed guards in school to protect these valuable assets, our children. I was excoriated by the left. They call that a crazy idea. And then what happens, though, long after these incidents occur, everybody kind of forgets about it, and then they pick up and they just go home, and the discussion doesn't continue until the next incident. So I think, again, we need to have that discussion, but that should occur at the state level. But I want to make it clear this is not a gun control issue. We don't need any knee-jerk reactions, which is what I hear after things like this. My God, let's let the grieving period happen for these families and the
17 families.
At 4chan's list. I've never seen such unity.
And a very happy Valentine's Day to you at home, you guys as well.
Thank you.
Allison Gargaro joining us live from a sweet place on a very sweet day.
Well, happy Valentine's Day, everyone. It has been just a gorgeous day today, and we're here at Sweet Surrender. Let me tell you, it smells just delicious in here with all their cookies, cupcakes, even chocolate-covered strawberries. You'll definitely want to get your last-minute goodies. They are open till 6 o'clock tonight, but today was just gorgeous. We had a high of 67 degrees, a few clouds in the morning, but clearing up for us tonight. So we're looking at 65 degrees right now in Bakersfield. So we're still a little bit above average, but still pretty cooler from what we're used to seeing like last week, and that's due to low pressure that's been hanging out. That's bringing us those cooler temperatures as well as breezy conditions. So we're looking at the breeze hanging out tonight, calming down a little bit early tomorrow, but as we head into those afternoon hours on Thursday, even continuing into Friday, that's when we're talking about strong winds. We're looking at gusts up to 30 miles per hour in our desert communities, even seeing 15-mile-per-hour gusts into Tehachapi. So it's going to be breezy, keeping us cool.
Offer code SoundCloud to save 10%.
Need to keep things fresh this Valentine's Day? Don't just buy something, do something on Groupon.
Lots of people still getting out there. Allison Gargaro joining us with weather on the road
President
tonight.
Juncker defense system against French calls for reform. News DW 14.2018.
Covered skies. We're looking at 44 degrees right now in Fraser Park, 29.
German Film Festival Berlin M% Beyond kicks off in San Francisco. Film DW 092.2018.
At least 17 people have been killed in a high school shooting
Germany
in Florida.
considering free public transportation to take on air pollution.
With an
News
assault rifle and smoke grenades began the
13.2018.
shooting spree outside Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland before opening fire inside. Said to have been wearing a gas mask, the shooter set off a fire alarm in a bid to draw students from their classes. The suspect has been named as 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz, who was arrested an hour after the rampage took place.
He is in custody. We've already began to dissect his websites and the things that social media that he
Will
was
delivery
on.
drones be held at efficient? Depends where you live.
Very,
Wired.
very disturbing. He was a former student of Douglas High School. He got expelled for disciplinary reasons. I don't know the specifics.
A teacher at the school said staff had undergone training for such a situation 6 weeks ago. It's the 6th deadly school shooting in the US this year, and one of the worst since 20 children were killed in Connecticut in 2012.
Amazon surpasses Microsoft in market value for the first time.
Near the dark of night, this suspect casually walks up to these cars in Loveland and begins taking anything he can. And it was all captured on camera. It was just one of nearly a dozen break-ins this Saturday in the Claiborne development off South Lebanon Road.
And there was probably $20 and change, down there in this dish in front of the console.
Many other victims had cell phones, expensive sunglasses, and even a camera worth $1,100 stolen.
Everybody that had something taken didn't lock their car door. We all need to, take a little more precaution and lock our vehicles.
Police are reminding neighbors to lock their doors and not to keep valuables inside their cars, discouraging this crime of opportunity.
They look
Allies pledged $30 billion to rebuild Iraq, far short of $88 billion. Girlfriends 24.
Grab it and go. They don't stick around. It's a matter of seconds. It's that quick.
Police say this development has been hit before. Some wonder if this suspect is a repeat offender.
It seems like it's the same MO as the last time. Yeah,
accused of harboring Paris attackers, they Ashland North cleared of charges. Friends 24.
And, looking for, change.
Now, officers say there could be more victims who just haven't filed police reports yet. If you recognize this suspect, you're asked to call Loveland Police. Reporting live tonight, Amanda Kelly, WLWT.
Fannie Mae wants another taxpayer bailout. Alex Jones in 4 hours. There's a war on for your mind. The inevitable agony of Olympic spoilers. Wired. Saudi Arabia released trainer ex-person live. Confident this will stabilize market. Going down party pressure, South African President Jacob Zuma resigns. Friends 24.
course. Oh, feeling great. A little bit cold, but I'm great. But it'll be better if they were winning now. We were winning. Trump had to go. He had to go somewhere else. But he'll be back. No. He had to go another country. But he'll be back. It's a secret. You just have to watch out.
United Tuesdays front news fired 19 people for sexual abuse in 2017 News DW 142.2018.
Well, we gave it all our all, so that's all I can say. They're playing good games.
The story of KFR Noble Hospital 41 minutes of her Syria DB.
Well, as a president, it's all been asked for, right? And this is the first time South and North are playing together. So, they didn't have time to prepare to play as a team. But given the circumstances, they're playing pretty well. Okay.
Scores of top White House officials lack permanent security clearances, NBC News.
It's the first time two Koreans are playing. It's very special. So, I'm here to promote peace. There's no better way to promote peace than having a convention.
Champions Ronaldo fires Real Madrid to 3 and comeback win over PSG France 24.
So what are we doing here? Are we playing a staring contest? Gentlemen? This is just crazy. You got about 10 policemen. What do you think I'm going to do? I haven't been violent. I just want to see the game. So what's the problem?
Syria 2018, the major issues for the year ahead. Syria deeply.
The game's about to finish, and I'm about to miss my game. I will walk. But don't.
Gunley Quran into to file for bankruptcy. Lex Jones and 4 hours there as a on for your mind.
Now, Kim Jong-un's real name is Howard. He joins us now from Seoul. How would you like us to refer to you? Kim Jong
Supreme Leader
Howard or Supreme Leader? Yes.
You can just call me Howard.
Okay. Howard, what the hell are you doing?
Well, I'm a professional impersonator, and I've been doing this since 2013. Not just a lookalike, but I'm also a satirist.
Democrats label chain migration racist. Lex Jones and 4 hours there as a on for your mind.
The Winter Olympics. And I'm here to set up the whole situation with North Korea and South Korea and, everything that has to do with that. And today I attended a hockey game, and unfortunately, they did not have a sense of humor.
Howard, did you not think that it might be a little dangerous on that peninsula in the current climate to impersonate Kim Jong-un like this?
No, because South Korea is a democracy and has freedom of speech. And it is very important to remind the whole world that, you can't let North Korea hijack these games using the cheerleaders and everything that they put out.
got to remind people that this is a terrible regime. And as an Aussie impersonator, I need to take this out.
NSA shooting 3 arrested, 3 injured after ship crashes main gate.
Sort of react. Could you understand them? Do you understand Korean? Did they hurl
Hello,
abuse at you?
being sued for ditching lifetime return policy fortune.
Well, the cheerleaders are great. I mean, they were beautiful, and I wouldn't mind taking a few of them home. But when I appeared in front of them, most of them were surprised, shocked, and some actually laughed, and they thought it was very funny. But it was who didn't find it funny were the minders. Now, remember,
I'm looking for something specific. Insanity, it's utter insanity out there. Hello, being sued for ditching lifetime return policy / fortune. Hold up, this is really interesting. Last week, hello, being announced plans to end its decades-old policy that let customers return products years after they had bought them. Now a Chicago man has sued a retailer for changing that policy. In his complaint, self-described hello, being enthusiast Victor Bundy claims that hello, Bean's lifetime return policy, which he says was advertised with no conditions and no end date, was key to the retailer's marketing for years. He argues that the warranty was a huge selling point for hello, Bean products and that ending it harms customers, Bloomberg reports. Bundy hopes to gain class action status for his lawsuit. Hello, Bean says that the return policy was never meant to be an infinite replacement plan. The company says roughly 15% of all of its recent returns were bogus and cost it $250 million. Customers were only supposed to return products that were defective. The company says some view it as a lifetime product replacement program, expecting refunds for heavily worn products used over many years. Others seek refunds for products that have been purchased through third parties, such as at yard sales. Hello, Bean chairman Sean Warren said in a letter to customers on Friday. Court to seek new map in Pennsylvania gerrymandering case. Found this nugget. Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, at Thursday's deadline day in Pennsylvania's high-stakes gerrymandering case for Democratic Gov. Tom Wolf and others to submit maps of new congressional district boundaries that they want the state Supreme Court to adopt for this year's election. The midnight deadline gives justices 4 more days to impose new boundaries, under a timeline the divided court set to keep May's primary election on schedule. Pennsylvania's congressional map is widely viewed as among the nation's most gerrymandered. Appending it could boost Democrats nationally in their quest to capture control of the U.S. House and dramatically change the state's predominantly Republican all-male delegation. Meanwhile, sitting congressmen, dozens of would-be candidates and millions of voters could find themselves in different districts. Republican lawmakers say they will swiftly ask federal judges to block a new map, and contend that the Democratic majority court had no power to invalidate the congressional boundaries or draw new ones. Wolf and several other parties, including the registered Democratic voters who sued to invalidate the map, can each submit as many suggested maps as they like. The court will be advised by Stanford University law professor Nathan Pursley, who has assisted judges drawing districts in North Carolina, New York, Connecticut, Georgia and Maryland. The justices could pick a submitted map, or rely on selected one. Wacky stuff going on all over the place. Turkey recently announced plans to possibly launch an operation on a Kurdish-held enclave in northern Syria. Jasper Fink, a lecturer in international law, assesses whether there is a legal justification for Ankara's potential operation.
Republicans will never do anything on gun control. Consider last summer you had Republican members of Congress shot and nearly killed during a softball practice, and they did nothing. After the Pulse nightclub, Democrats had a sit-in in the House. Republicans did nothing. After Vegas, hundreds injured, over 50 killed. Republicans did nothing. The idea of gun policy in the Republican Party is to try to get a speaking slot at the NRA and prove to that constituency that you're further right than generations past of Republicans have been on guns. And there's a disconnect with the American people and the heartbreak of the American people tonight. And so if this is the issue that defines your ideology as a voter, there are two things I would suggest tonight. First, flip the House. Flip the House. Republicans are not going to do a single thing after this shooting we saw today. But I would also offer to Democrats, work for incremental wins. And what I mean by that is this. We can do comprehensive universal background checks, and we can do it with the support of the law enforcement community, which typically is a conservative Second Amendment group. The law enforcement community wants universal background checks. They want greater restrictions on assault rifles. Democrats should go to the law enforcement community and say, we're going to leave the Republicans behind. Let's work on this together right now and get the will of the American people to be enacted in the United States Congress.
It all started with Brennan. After Putin blocked Brennan's operations in both Ukraine and Syria, Brennan had every reason to retaliate and to use the tools at his disposal to demonize Putin and try. At Vicky for Trump. Democrat congressional candidate busted trying to hawk stolen ring. A congressional candidate from Wisconsin was busted by the nipped in her own state when she tried to hawk a ring she ripped off from a Manhattan. At Quilly 1046. Red tweet if Jeff Sessions should indict Susan Rice.
No, I don't. Not that I'd feel comfortable saying on camera.
Are you from Tennessee? Because you're the only 10 I see.
Hey, what's your number? I don't know. I don't have a pickup line. I just kind of flirt with it.
I've had a girlfriend for a year and a half now.
Try just a classic, what up?
You like Starbucks? Well, I like you a latte.
More than half of a class of 8th graders on a class visit to Washington. Jeff Bezos is ruining whole for this quality photo with Republican Speaker of the House Paul. At 4chan's bust, Edge has made it his own manga. At Rothkopf Charlie. Can everyone please take a second to pray for my coach today? He took several bullets covering other students at the bus. At Real Gala Wire, at Joseph Kurlski are missing in New York, found a week later 2,900 miles away in California, confused and still wearing helmet. Buggles at Joseph Curl. At ShareBlue. MSNBC host Nicole Wallace shames new normal of deadly school shootings. She is exactly, and heartbreakingly, right. At Benjamin Wicks. Wow, this is way worse than I ever suspected. More than 130 White House political appointees working lack permanent security clearances as of November 2017, including the president's dot. At Kyla Griffin 1, at Kyla Griffin 1 full, partial list of WH, officials lacking permanent security clearances as of November 2017. For NBC News, Ivanka Trump, Jared Kushner, Don Wagandensky, Vino, Christopher Little, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Raj Shadina Powell, Nadia Shadlow, Fiona Hill, Kevin Harrington, John Rader, Ty Cobb. At the Olympics. While finished a heated game between these two rivals. Winter Olympics. At Rumble Biggs. Please God make it stop. The insanity is getting to be too much for me to bear. The army says that starting next summer it will remove the requirement because it takes too much time to teach enlistees to throw grenades at it. A spokeswoman says Education Secretary Betsy DeVos will donate her nearly $200,000 salary to 4 charities focusing on education and special. At The Hill. Rubio Eshonti jumped to conclusions that gun control laws would be prevented Florida school shooting. Directors for the CFB and NSA expressed their distrust of Apple rival Huawei and fellow Chinese telecom companies. At MCSPOCKY. Trump releases budget proposal for health department. At Columbia Bugle. Editorial welcome Tukla, one of America's finest universities, where insulting a foreign country is illegal but spies and traitors freed by President Obama are welcomed as guest lecturers. There must be some kind of way out of here. Magam Mexico Sucker St. Bill 12. At the Daily Beast. Fox's Shep Smith powerfully listed every single school shooting since Columbine. It took him more than 2 minutes to write the list. In a powerful moment, it took a Fox News anchor more than 2 minutes to list every fatal school shooting between Columbine and Stoneman. At the box, my birthday is February 21st. I can't afford my healthcare after February 28th because my monthly premium leapt to $1,978.10 in January. I am reapplying for Medicaid NSA, but no one should have to do this in America. I am just one of millions. At Buzzcurt, at Nat, according to official registry dated today, Erdogan government approved Turkey's agreement with that NATO agency that deals with command, control, communications, computers, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. At MMK, Nicholas Cruz followed Hamas. Why is Hamas embraced by our schools, media, law enforcement, politicians etc. were students scared to report Cruz's Islamic jihadi tendencies because K% libs might label them gun control Florida. At Terry. Good morning. At Denos Kotlo, on this day of love, even with the senseless heartbreaking news of yet another school shooting, remember that love is louder. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. At Fox News, at Broward Sheriff. Breaking at least 17 killed, suspect in custody, at Broward Sheriff says. At Cheeto Justice 4. Too bad that guy from last month's shooting in Sutherland Springs, Texas couldn't have run over to Parkland, Florida in time to shoot the killer, gun since Florida shooting.